Well, I'm going to ask Nicole, how how have you shared your story with others? Because right now you're writing your book, but have you been comfortable to share your stories and when you did that, how did you feel? Because it is uncomfortable to be vulnerable and open up, especially about your son now, right?
Yes, Barbara, it is very uncomfortable. First of all, if you get to know me, and you probably already have noticed, I'm very shy and reserved. And it's very hard for me. I was also not a successful student until high school. So I felt very invisible, very disengaged. And I learned to be quiet in settings like that because I felt that my perspective was probably not important or maybe different or not what I was supposed to say. So I learned to be quiet and stay under the radar. So telling Jason's story has really, well, maybe I should back up. I have to tell Jason's story because I'm a teacher and I look at Jason's every day.
Hmm.
And now that I know what I'm looking at and the tears and the isolation, and the more I do research and learn about the risk factors involved long term for people with ADHD, I have to tell our story. And that's what keeps me going. And I've actually, through my sharing, this shocked me, but I've actually been able to encourage a few other people to tell their story of their children. And I think that's where it's really at. That's where the magic happens, is that we have to keep the dialogue going. We have to keep sharing.
I'm going to ask you if you want to share this because I thought it was really amazing. From Jason's point of view, he's telling his story. And being someone who was um, upset, but no one really listened, right? Um, and the best way to control them was to tell them these are the rules and you need to know the rules. And you told me what Jason said and what happened and how you figured some things out.
About the rules, I'm sorry, I'm not sure which one you're
Well,
referring to.
the one where they put the tape around.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes, yes. So, yes, because out of respect for Jason and my love for Jason, I've learned to really not be shy and share authentically and be a stand for him. And one thing that one of the teachers suggested doing was Jason can't sit still, like literally physically cannot sit still. He's extremely hyperactive, never stops moving. And it's disruptive to kids around him and something he just has to do. So at one point, they wanted to put a tape box around him in his classroom. And I really was very upset about that. I thought that they were like going to put a letter on him next or what? Like, come on, we don't have to make this so obvious, do we? And I learned because Jason spoke up at the meeting. I have him come to all of our meetings and said, no, Mom, I like the box around me. I feel safe with the box around me because I know I can move as much as I want to and nobody else can come in my box.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, we need to ask the kids. We need to
Exactly.
open up. So, one of the things that Nicole shared really changed me about when people ask me, what do you do? And there's this kind of behavior and things, I thought, have we even asked them? And same with teachers. Do we ever ask them what they want for professional learning and things like that?
And thank you, Barbara. That's exactly what I'd like to expand is people actually asking the kid and the teacher and really having authentic dialogue.
Yes. And that's what stories are all about, if we can just open up.
Yeah, I'm going to chime in something here real quick. It was in my story that I put out with regards to who really raised me. I know you've seen this, Barbara, and to Nicole. When I was in fourth grade, they put a trifold screen around because I was distracting and was easily distracted by others. And of course, back in our day, we didn't have the acronyms that we do. They just called it hyperactivity. I went and decorated the inside of my screen. you know, and all the kids wanted to come in and take a look at it, and the teacher ended up taking away the screen because it was more fun than it was without it. So, yeah, I appreciate the tape box and him liking it.
Isn't that amazing? I think what we'll do is I'll ask a few more questions, then we'll have our conversations. Does that sound okay? Because I want to just find out from the rest of you, how you shared your story. So, Mike, why don't you share that?
Yeah, I think what really registered with me, Barbara, when you said before that for a teacher to share their story, a lot of times it feels there's this pressure on you where you're trying to not chime about yourself as much because it feels like boasting, or you don't know if it's 100% safe. But I think about 5 years ago, I started just blogging, and actually not so much communicating about myself, but just what we were doing in the classroom. And through that, I got more in touch, was able to reflect more about why I do what I do. And presenting my students' products actually communicates more about my beliefs than I could ever communicate in my own words sometimes.
I do like that, and we're going to ask another question about the students. So, but what I like is Mike did something really cool in our session. He created the presentation in Pear Deck. I never knew how to use it. And what I realized, I was an ed tech, supposed to be a specialist. Well, I can tell you, I sure don't feel like it now because there's so many tools I don't know. And Mike was just, everything was there. He had it all ready. He was going around with his iPad. He was everything. And so, those are the kinds of things where you're making sure the stories are told because you're capturing them. I love that.
And like Nicole said, I'm a super introvert as well and very shy, and one of those people at a conference, I may see someone I recognize, but I'm not the kind of person who's going to run up and give Barbara Bray a hug. She's got to come find me and hug me.
And I do.
So, so it's much more easier for me to type about my story than to go around talking about it. So having the opportunity for you to bring me along, Barbara, goes a long way. And again, flipping that to something like a technology tool that allows students to be heard who aren't going to be the ones that raise their hand and have their voice still be heard is something that I think is really important for me.
Well, I'm glad you do that. It's wonderful. Okay, Dan, this whole idea of entrepreneurship and what you're doing, it's amazing, but it is tough. Just to be able to have a course like this and get it out there. I just wish there was more schools that had it.
Well, is there a question there, or should I just say thank you?
Okay, no. Yeah, you can say thank you. But it's how do you share your story? And I'm almost, I'm just thinking, how did you do that? How did you get that course started? And
Actually, you and I touched on this in our podcast, and it was from the moment I walked into the classroom as a student teacher, I knew that it was going to be project-based learning. It was marketing classroom. Hats off to Jan Brown and Joy Law at Carmel High School for just giving me the classroom as a student teacher. And so I took a look at standards and things, just having come from being an executive in the marketing world, and I looked at them and said, yeah, these are cool, but this is not what marketing is about. And so I immediately inverted Bloom's taxonomy, and I went from let's give them a little bit of knowledge and then start applying it, then start creating it. In terms of getting it started, all of the success that I had in the business world can be attributed to the skills that I had. And so I wanted to make certain that the skills were being given to the young people, not necessarily all of the content knowledge. Content knowledge, they can go out and do Google searches and find it in no time. And so my story and how I'm getting it out there, I think I alluded to earlier, and that is it's organic. I just tell it. I'm not a real good promoter. I don't like to wave the flag and toot my horn, and things have just happened organically. And I'm very fortunate right now to have somebody that just joined ASAP that wants to video and photo document the classroom and start promoting it. So I thought that's really cool. And I'm very fortunate to have a supportive principal in Matt White at Apex Friendship, who allowing me to teach it the way that I do. And the stories just kind of grow, if you will. Once somebody experiences it, they're like, holy cow. Whether it be an industry person, a parent, or a student alike. So good question. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'm, sometimes I want to bring all of you back on my show again just to go to the next level. This is a great opportunity.
I want to stay on here and do the conversation for another hour.
I know. Well, we're going to do it, but I'm going to talk to Lindsay right now, and then we'll come, and then Dr. Will.
Yeah. Well, so Barbara, I think the question we're still on is how have you shared your story and how do you feel in sharing your story? But before we get there, I don't know if you saw this before, but whenever I hear something, it reminds me of something else, which is how we all work. And I want to suggest to all of you, including you, my friend Dan, Take a look at Sam Weinberg's book, Why Learn History When Everything You Need to Know is on Your Phone, because no, you can't just Google stuff. You absolutely cannot. So I think that we need to share a language, my friends, about what is this foundational knowledge that humans need to be successful in the world. And if we have a shared agreement on what that language is, then yes, certainly there are certain skills that sort of traverse all of those domains. And when I write and when I speak and when I give PDs or when I give talks, I certainly talk about what are those metacognitive skills, what are those self-regulated learning skills, what are our epistemologies about whatever the domain is that impact our thinking, but we still very much need foundational skills and knowledge, including context when it comes to history. So I couldn't not share that, so I've shared that. But now the question specifically was, how do you share stories with others? You know, Barbara, I wasn't going to say this out loud, but I'm going to. When I was in graduate school the second time, I had a faculty member who was very well known in the field, and I really looked up to this person and still do. And I remember going into this person's office one day, and I had gotten some paper that I had written back. And this person looked at me and said, you know, Lindsay, it's really a shame that you don't write as well as you speak. And it was like dagger to the heart of like, oh, there goes my life. I'm done. I'm never going to write. It's never going to happen. And the reality is, not only was this person hugely wrong, but because of this really horrible experience that I had, and because of a system that actually didn't quite serve me as well as it may have, and acknowledging the privilege I do have as a white woman and all of the other resources that I did have accessible to me, despite all of those, I still was not as successful as I could have been. So in sharing my story and in embracing the times when I've maybe been pushed down or pushed back, it's given me a chance to sort of get up and wipe myself off and take a look around and take stock and say, okay, where did that comment come from? Where did this information come from? What is the context, I guess, which leads back to the very first question. What is the context for the story? And how am I choosing to interpret the story? Is it going to be a story that then, you know, is pushing me down and I'm going to, you know, run away from fear? Or am I going to turn around and, Barbara, I'm going to borrow from your FEAR acronym, you know, am I going to face it? Am I going to walk into something that is uncertain and maybe scary and face it? I think it's really all about, are you really ready to walk the talk? We talk about mindset. How many of us are modeling growth mindset in our lives? I think we are. We're in really great company. How do we get more folks to model that? We talk about vulnerability, and we do that because I see your tweets, my friends. I see you out there. How do we get others to model that vulnerability? So it's not just my story or your story, it's all of our stories.